This podcast may contain views and opinions which are those of the hosts and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any local agency, organization, union, employee, or company, including the podcast.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Off the Clock Shop Talk. Thank you guys for tuning in every week, as we say. We've had a lot of firsts on the show, a lot of promises kept as far as guests goes and whatnot. And this week, we will not disappoint. We've been saying that, this isn't a Teamster show. It's not a UPS show. It's not, it's really a labor movement show. So
I feel like that's changing a lot.
I am, say that again?
I feel like that's changing a lot. It's not a Teamster show. It's not a UPS show.
Yeah, right. I mean, we kind of started out more UPS specific, but we've progressed and, it became a Teamster show kind of, where it was strictly Teamsters, but we've been talking about bringing just more of the labor movement, more unions to the forefront in the show. And this week, like I said, will not disappoint. I'd like to introduce, without further ado, Jake Bowman from Medieval Times.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
How's it going?
Not bad. I'm glad to have you. If you guys don't know, Medieval Times is on strike currently. These guys are trying to get a contract, and we'll jump into all that. But
I guess first, really quick, let's get to know Jake Bowman really quick. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I guess the easiest way to talk about myself is in reference to Medieval Times. So I'm 33. And this is my second run with the company. First run was almost right out of college in like 2012, 2013 timeframe. And then I was we have like a different program, like where when you start in the show, you're actually like labeled as a squire, right? Mm-hmm. And then you start training, you become an apprentice knight, nice. And then you become a knight in the show. And these are like literal job classifications, right? So this is like what your job title is.
Even the job classifications are like old timey. It's awesome.
It's absolutely hilarious, right? So I was a squire and an apprentice knight in Dallas, in Texas, where I'm originally from, and where I went to school and everything. And I got kicked in the back by a horse, and
shit!
And it fractured my spine. So it cracked my L1 lumbar, and I was out for a while. Obviously, no permanent damage or anything like that. It's just an unfortunate accident, and thank God nothing really bad happened.
What was the recovery for that like, since your spine was cracked or fractured?
So like I basically was just bedridden for like a while. Not as long as you think. Like honestly, I was only in bed for like maybe a few weeks or something. And don't get me wrong, my memory is a little
being
hazy,
in bed for 2 weeks.
I could still kind of get up and move, but I was like primarily like in bed, right?
My God.
And
that's a nightmare.
It was and I was on a lot of painkillers, like a lot of painkillers.
Oh, so it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah. Well, so I don't react like very well to that kind of stuff, and so I just was like a zombie for like 2 weeks, which is like I guess better than being in pain, right?
Yeah, some people like that though. It's weird.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
Listen, we live in Southern California, right? Like I do weed just like everybody smoke weed just like everybody else does, right? Like I'm not sure if we're supposed to say that out loud, but like I get it, right? Fine. So like I'm totally like I'm totally into sort of like zoning out, having a good time, but like being on painkillers is like
it's a whole different thing, dude. I remember because I had surgery on my shoulder like a couple years ago, and they gave me Dilaudid, I'm not sure, and it was fucking horrible.
And Dilaudid's like worse than morphine, and so that's what I got for my back.
That's technically it's a like a pharmaceutical version of heroin. Yeah. It's fucking horrible.
So I vividly remember this. I don't remember like a whole lot because this is over 10 years ago now. So I'm a little bit like fuzzy on a lot of my memories, but I specifically remember being in the hospital and when they gave me 2 doses of like Dilaudid, and the first one he shot into my IV and he did it too fast. So he just basically shot the whole thing. It burned so bad. It set my entire body on fire. And I was like in pain from my back, and now my body was on fire. And I was on like a mixture of like a bunch of different things. And so it was like making me really emotional. So I was just sitting in the hospital just crying because I was like, everything hurts and my body feels like, like literally the inside of my body is burning. And so I was like complaining. I was like, please don't do this to me again. And thank God, like when they came back, they were really nice. They did like a much slower like injection the second round.
Really nice. You're like, please be nice.
Yeah, I was like, please help. Yeah, like they were very sweet people, but like, you know, they did a much slower injection, and then, you know, I was pretty good for the rest of the day. But it was really funny. It made me like hyper emotional. So like my dad had showed up and my boss had come, and like my girlfriend at the time were all in there, and I would talk to them just like I'm talking to you guys, like totally fine. I'd be like, this is fine. I'll be done. I'll be up in like 2 weeks. No worries. Like everything's good. And then there was like a Dallas Cowboys football game on, right? And then I would like watch the Dallas Cowboys, and like they would like the other team would like score a touchdown. I'd just start crying. And I had no idea why. I had zero idea why. Fan? Like I was at the time, but like not that much. Like not. Well, listen. At some point when you're watching your team lose for many years, you're just over the whole thing.
He's used to it.
Yeah,
I'm not over it. I don't care.
I'm just over the whole thing, man. I don't even watch. I don't even really watch. I like live in Angel Stadium right now, and I don't watch anything. I haven't been to a game. Like I don't. You know, I'm like a nerd. I'm plugged into esports or whatever the hell's going on right now. Although like really, to be fair, not even that anymore. Yeah. So I broke my back. It was a bad situation. I ended up leaving, and then I've literally done everything that you can possibly imagine since then, trying to just figure out like what my place is, and not really successfully doing it. Like I've been a mildly successful actor with commercials. That's part of the reason why I moved out to California in the first place, is I was going to try to, you know, make it in the big city. Yeah. That didn't work out. Like it doesn't work out for a lot of people. That's just not like, the whole scene's just not my vibe anymore. I don't really do the whole like schmoozing people thing anymore. Like I fucking can't.
It's so
like,
fake.
I can't. Yeah. And you know, the first time I showed up to in Texas, it's like a small thing, right? Like it's like you're like a medium-sized fish in like a small pond. Yeah. And so I knew everybody, and so half the time I could just show up and like have nice conversations, and they knew me and they've worked with me before, and you know, commercials are like super fun and easy. You get paid a lot and you don't have to do a whole lot of work. And so like I was, you know, rolling pretty good there for a while. I wasn't necessarily like living off of it, but I was making good side income on it. And then I moved out here, and like the first thing they're like is, how many Twitter followers do you have? And I was like,
what's Twitter?
What's a twit? Like what's a twit? Tweet? A twit? Twitter? Got it. Yeah, I don't know what that is. And then so obviously I did not last very long. And then there was like you said, there's a level of like, you always hear about it. You always hear about like LA and like this like fake sort of like, you know, persona that people put on, and like it's a completely different thing to see it, right? The first time you interact with it or encounter it, I was like, what is this? Like, you are not a real person, and it's like so blatantly obvious that you're not talking to me normally right now. And that's just not how I'm built. I'm very like, you know, I don't have like the greatest mouth on me, like you know, I'm just gonna say it how it is.
It feels so like not genuine.
It's not
So weird.
I would.
It's like they're being nice, but like you're so fake.
Oh, and I know I was in an acting class too, and this was the worst thing, right? Is I was in like an acting class, and like they would do these like showcases of like independent projects, or like, you know, essentially like student films, but they were like adults, and they'd be like, man, like I worked really hard on this, you know, I've been editing this for months, and you'd watch it, and you're like, bro, this is so bad, this is so terrible, but nobody can say that, right? Everybody's like, wow, you really just captured emotions there, you know, and it's like very vague statements. It's like
you're full of shit.
They need that one real guy in the back who's like, turn that shit off.
It's like if you've ever performed on stage before, like I've done like a lot of stage performances or whatever, and like the worst compliment you can get when you get done is, man, you looked great in that costume. Right, because because the rest of it was just absolute shit, right? So you get that, right? You're gonna have bad
you look great in blue.
Yeah, man, that costume was fantastic. And that was it, you know, and then there's nothing that follow up with that. Like, and that's kind of what it's like, is that you just kind of like, you're like, man, you were on that camera. You looked like you were there. Good job, you know? And then you just try to come up with something to say. And I couldn't deal with that shit anymore.
Thanks for showing up.
I couldn't deal with that shit anymore. I would much rather like, you know, I love being creative. I love film. I love entertainment. Like, you know, I work in an entertainment industry, right? So it's I want to perform. I want to be in front of people. But you got to just tell me how it is, right? Like if I have a bad show, you know, at Medieval Times, like there's going to be 17 dudes that are like, you fucking sucked, right? You know, like, and they'll be the first ones to tell you, we care more about our performance than the audience does. Like I'll go back after a show, and and I'll be like, man, that was trash. Like that, I feel bad that people paid to see that. That was absolute like dog shit. Wow. And then I'll go out to like meet and greets with people, and they'll be like, that's the best thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, we are not on the same page, but thank you, I appreciate it.
Believe it or not, that's actually sometimes how we feel about the show.
Yeah,
we're like, oh yeah, that episode was dog shit.
Yeah, all the
but,
time.
People will be like, oh no, we really like that. I'm like, no.
It's a good thing though. It sounds negative, but it's like a positive thing. If you care more about the product that you're creating than even the people that you're creating it for, then you're always going to be innovating. You're always going to be improving, right? You're going to be making a really good show. And so that's the idea with us in Medieval Times. So, like I said, Greg, I've done everything under the sun. I've done sales, I've done tech, like all this kind of stuff. And then I was sitting at home, miserable, overweight, like working tech from home, just doing like call center work, and I could not stand it anymore. And I drove by and I was like, Medieval Times is hiring again. It's post-COVID. They need people. I need a job. Yeah. Like I'm a 33-year-old or 32-year-old knight with a former back injury, right? So like I'm not like the ideal candidate, but they needed people. So it was sort of a perfect storm of circumstances. And I've been there now for about a year and a half, and I dropped 25 pounds in the first 6 weeks that I was working.
Nice.
Got in pretty good shape. Although being on strike, I've gained a lot of that back. But I got pushed through the apprentice night program relatively quickly because I had some experience before. And then, I've been working pretty solid in the show and performing for, almost a year now. And like I said, we care way more about the show than most of the people out there. And it is something that we put a lot of pride and effort into, which is then turned into now a lot of pride and effort into making the job what it should be, right? And not what it is.
Did your previous time from being employed there tack on to your employment now?
You mean like time-wise?
Yeah.
No, so I've been at this location in Buena Park for like a year and a half.
Okay.
And I was with the company previously for about a year. So I guess my tenure at the company has been like 2.5 years, something like that, right? But there was a huge gap, like literally like an 11-year gap in between.
Oh wow.
In between the two times. Ironically, the company hasn't changed much in 11 or 12 years.
There's not a lot of growth there.
Yeah, like it's basically the exact same, and it's funny. Like a lot of what we're doing right now,
like they're stuck in the medieval times.
Dude, if I had a nickel for every time we had that joke. No, I like looking back on it right now, I was like, man, a lot of the problems that we're fighting against right now were there in 2012, 2013. Yeah. I just didn't realize it because when you're 22, 23, 24 is not what you're paying attention to, right?
And I think companies actually tend to do that a lot. Obviously they don't want a lot of turnaround because they want people to learn the job and whatnot, but some turnaround for companies is good because then you don't notice the major problems, the ongoing problems that are there all the time. I know UPS, with their part-timers, right?
The turnover rate is insane.
The turnover rate is crazy.
Yeah.
But I think they like some aspects of that because they don't really have to fix what they need to fix. Yeah. I mean, pay didn't get fixed. I mean, we discussed this a couple shows ago. So I started in 2002. We had a guest on, Carlos Schumann, who had started in 84?
84. She started the year we were born.
The difference in pay was 25 cents from when she started to when I started.
Yeah.
And there was no wage growth. It was, back then it was
but I mean, for the better part of like 22 years, it was the same wage.
It was basically the same wage.
That's insanity.
So I mean, in '84 it was great. In 2002, not so much.
Yeah. Well, no, it's very similar at Medieval Times too. I mean, I refer to them as my guys because it's a lot easier since like I'm sort of like in charge of like the Knights group right now. Even though they're not my guys, but I'm like one of the oldest Knights, right? There's only like 2 other guys or 3 other guys that are like in their 30s. Wow. Right. So most of the guys that I'm educating or that's on strike with me right now, that's working with me, are young, 20s, like early 20s, right? Or even like I had a couple of guys that were like 19, right? And then so it is both simultaneously like a very difficult thing to educate these guys on what's going on and get them to care. And at the same time, it's really cool because they all care, right? So it's like now I'm seeing a much different generation of dudes that are coming up that care a lot more about what's going on and that are paying attention to what's going on. And maybe that's like California thing. Maybe it's just a perfect storm of I had the right guys. Like, I don't know, but
I think
they care.
You know, it's something we've talked about on the show before. Like complacency. You know, when you maybe have things too good for too long, which I think in some industries you do, some you don't. Don't get me wrong. But when people have to fight, you know, I guess one of the things that we have talked about with almost all the guests is what was like the catalyst to drive them into the labor movement, or at least to open their eyes, you know, because they're obviously all UPSers or Teamsters, right. But a lot of them just aren't involved. And we have that issue now where a lot of people aren't involved and they don't really care because they have it fairly good.
They have it good right now.
Yeah. So when we talk to people from other industries who have been fighting, the membership is a lot more active, a lot more, you know, involved. And a lot of that I feel is just due to tough times. Like, what's the saying? Tough times breed tough men. Like, it's true. Tough times. You know, as these people have had to fight for what they have, you just see a lot more involvement and a lot more care. I mean, you know, really.
It's a sign of the times too, man. I mean, like, not that we're going to dive down like some sort of political like rabbit hole, but it's things are not great right now, right? Yeah. I mean, everybody's underpaid, everybody's overworked. Yeah. Like
inflation is through the roof.
You can't afford a house. Half the people can't afford to live. Like, I mean, there's this. I watch a lot of like late night comedy shows and stuff, and John Oliver is like one of my favorite people to watch, just because he's hilarious. And he made a joke I think a week or two ago on his show that was like, his show is about homeowners associations. And he said right at the start, he was like, "This show is for if you're over 35. If you are under 35, you will
born out of your mind."
Yeah, if you're under 35, you will never own a home. And the joke was he made an entire separate show about Chuck E. Cheese for anybody that was under 35.
That's awesome.
It was hilarious. I watched both of them. And the Chuck E. Cheese one was actually really good. It was about the dark history of Chuck E. Cheese, which was fantastic.
Great. That's great.
Like, it was a joke and it was funny, but it was funny and sad because it was true. It's like if you're under 35, your chances of ever owning a home are like basically nothing.
They're basically zero.
So,
right now.
And it's a crazy thing to think about too, because it's like, I mean, my parents have owned homes, you know what I'm saying? Like, and they're mobile right now. They're like traveling around and like doing the whole like life without kids thing kind of deal. Yeah, basically. I mean, they're having a blast.
Awesome.
You know, so I don't even have like a generational home to like inherit, right? Like I should have thought about this a lot.
Sorry,
like,
son, we sold that.
Yeah, we had a beautiful home growing up, like a beautiful home, like in Texas or whatever. And like as soon as we moved out, my parents were like, "Nah, we're not dealing with this anymore."
It's too much work.
Left. Yeah. They just left.
Home ownership can be tough, to be honest.
So we literally may never own a home, and so we may be in apartments forever. And like I literally got a letter like 2 or 3 days ago that my rent's going up, you know, and it's just, it's nonstop. And like you watch like the news and you pay attention to what's going on on like Capitol Hill and stuff. And there's all these like congressional hearings and Senate hearings where you've got CEOs that are coming up and they're like justifying the fact that they are not paying people anything. Yeah. And it's hard to get people to care, right? It's hard to get people to understand, to say like, this is not okay. And there are a lot more people that are saying that now. Like, it's a sign of the times. I think a lot of people are finally paying attention, but it's not near enough, right? Like, I mean, it is not even close to being the amount of people that we need to really like affect change. I mean, like the entire country of France like burned down like this past like couple of weeks, right? You know, they were pissed off about a lot of things, and they basically like everybody basically went out and like set fire to everything. And that sounds extreme, but I mean, at this point, it's kind of what we need. I wish that like everybody right now would start burning things down, because it needs to change. Like it absolutely needs to change.
No, there's definitely some. There's a need, right, for people to work towards something, right? When you feel like you're working and you're just stuck in this, like you said, you know, with the apartment thing, like, hey, I might never own a home, and that realization is a tough one. You know, it's a tough pill to swallow, and it's people like the unions and like the labor movement that are just grinding it out, trying to drive to get back to a good, solid middle class again, to get back to, you know, fair wages, safe work environments. I feel like we've regressed so much, you know, within the past couple, maybe the decade or two.
I'd say for the last 10 to 20 years.
The employers just don't want to pay anymore. They're just over it.
There's been like 3 news stories just in the past month about like kids working in factories.
Yeah.
It's like
what do we do? Child labor's back, guys.
Child labor's back.
Like who thought this was a good idea? Like what happened? Yeah. And there's like people defending it. It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
It is.
And we have one of our knights lives in his car. We are on a small scale.
Absolutely absurd that he has a job and is living in a car.
Yeah, he works full time.
I really think that some people fail to see that is fairly common. Mm-hmm. People have full-time jobs and they still work their ass off and they can't even afford an apartment. And the apartments are through the roof. Mm-hmm. I bought a house 8 years ago. And I have friends that are still fairly young and that, I'm getting an apartment here, I'm getting an apartment there. And
I'm sure my rent's more than
$3,000 to $4,000 for their mortgage. I mean, for their rent.
Rent's $3,300.
Oh my God.
That's a lot.
I don't know how you can survive. It's just
you have to get a good union job. It's basically the only thing you can do right now. Like not even joking.
I mean, it's still struggling.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. What did you go to school for?
History.
Oh,
nice.
Dude, I like my dad made the funniest. It's not a mistake, but like I guess the funniest agreement ever was like, a lot of members of my family hadn't gone to college or hadn't completed college. I think dad had at the time, and he's gone back since then multiple times. But he was like, "You're going to school. I'm not really giving you a choice. You're going to college. I'll pay for it. You're going to college. Don't care what you do. Just go get a degree." And so, I mean, I showed up like first semester, and I was like, which class is the least boring? And that was just what I picked, right?
That's
and I was
perfect.
like, I love history. This is fantastic. And I was smooth sailing for 4 years. Like I didn't go an hour over my requirements. Like I was 4 years, 4 and done. Like nice. I'm a massive nerd, right? I play a lot of video games and I played a lot of video games in college and I didn't do anything. I basically just sat around and just kind of skated by and got a college degree, and it helped. I mean, at the time, like
I'm sure it definitely helped.
It did at the time. I mean, right now, 100%. If somebody came and talked to me about going to school, I'd be like, don't go to school. There are way better options, right?
I agree.
100% way better options. I'm still paying off debt. But at the time, I graduated in 2011, right? You needed a college degree, right? The past 10 years.
At least that's what they told everyone.
That's what they told
Yeah,
everyone.
it was still popular. It was still the popular or the predominant train of thought was like you have to get a college degree and then you can go into the workforce, right? And now 10 years later, it's not really like that anymore. Like you can do a lot of different things. You can educate yourself on YouTube, right? And you know what I'm saying? Like you really can.
That's how I taught myself to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. You can educate yourself on anything.
Plumbing, carpentry.
My buddy built his car, like his motor, just off videos on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we're going to get to a spot soon, and we're gonna have growing pains just like anything, but we're gonna get to a spot soon where you're not gonna have to have a formal education for anything anymore. I mean, I literally looked up. We were joking the other day about becoming lawyers because we're so irritated and frustrated with the lawyer that we're dealing with. Not our lawyer's fantastic, but the one that we're dealing with for the company because he's something else. And I was like, man, like I want to be like, I wish I had knowledge and I can fight across the table with this guy. And I was just looking up like becoming a lawyer. And California is like one of only 4 states where you don't have to get, you don't have to go to law school. So you can study right now.
I did not know that.
And you can apply to take the bar exam in California if you want to. You can do it all on your own.
Very interesting.
There's like interviews and different things that you have to go through, but like for the most part, theoretically, you can basically I could study right now and take the bar. It is also, I think, one of the hardest states to pass the bar exam, so it's not like an easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, try it if you can.
Yeah, I mean, but 100%. If you want to be a lawyer, if you want to work in law, you can do it on your own in California. So, and I think that there needs to be more things like that. I don't think I'm happy that I went to college. I enjoyed college and I met a lot of fun people and I enjoyed my time there. But you don't have to go to college. I didn't learn. I mean,
the information is out there. The tools are out there. Like you said, YouTube. Like you could just about learn anything on YouTube. I mean, literally anything under the sun, you could probably learn on YouTube. So let's get down to business, I guess.
Cheers.
Next segment.
Do our cheers.
Oh, you want to do our cheers,
Yeah,
George?
we jumped in. We're doing
Well,
this
you're
late.
gonna have to open that water bottle.
Oh, okay, got it.
We will get to our cheers because like we always say, we are off the clock. We're not here in our official capacity by any means. We're just a couple guys talking union stuff. So, cheers!
Cheers.
To medieval times and what you guys are doing out there.
Thank you.
You have our support for sure.
Yeah. You guys have been our biggest supporters so far, so thank you.
Well, I mean, we really do, and I don't mean, us, but the Teamsters as a whole. We have some very active members. I know Silver's been out there quite a bit.
Silver's awesome.
Silver
cool
is getting very
awesome.
active. He's
awesome.
he's a very cool guy.
Yeah.
That being said, I just wanted to kind of, I guess, ask some questions. Like, what drove the strike? How did that all start? I mean, we talked a little bit off camera, but if you want to talk about how that started back east and whatnot.
Sure, I'll give just a quick rundown of like our brief history so far. So we are unionized through AGVA, which is the American Guild of Variety Artists. It is nowadays a relatively small union. I was explaining to you off camera. It used to be huge, right? 50s and 60s. It used to have like all the nightclubs and stuff all along like West Coast and East Coast and all that kind of stuff. And it had its own award show on television. Massive union. So 15 offices, something like that. And nationwide, I had like just so many people. And then as that sort of industry of like the nightclub kind of thing sort of died down, they sort of de-sized with it, right? So now they've got a West Coast office and an East Coast office. And they're fantastic people. Like they're just absolutely wonderful people. But they fit and they deal with niche performance stuff. So they do like Radio City Hall Rockettes, they do Cirque du Soleil shows, they do stunt shows at Disney and stunt shows at Universal. And they're really good about customizing contracts, right? So it's not like joining SAG or joining Equity or something where they sort of have these cut and dry contracts that you sort of adhere to,
Cookie
right?
cutter
Kind of things, contracts. Right? Ours is not. Ours is from the ground up. It's completely unique. It fits, and it's going to be different even from location to location at medieval times, right? So New Jersey started. They were the ones that found AGVA and they wanted to unionize, and they got completely involved in the process before we'd even known about it, right? In California. And then when we heard about what New Jersey was doing, we were like, that sounds great. Like, let's jump on board. And then we went really fast. Like we had like cards signed and submitted within like a week, Wow. And then so in New Jersey, they didn't contest like their whole like card election thing or whatever. And then in California, they did. So we had about 5 months, give or take, of what I would consider to be union busting meetings. So they were captive audience meetings, right? And so this was, we actually voted we actually voted the union in November. So this was like in like July last year, right? Is when we submitted our cards and we had started this meeting process. At the time, we knew that they had hired a union buster in New Jersey to come and talk to them. They were paying this guy like $3,200 a day or something like that. There's a bunch of news articles on it.
It's amazing how much they spend to fight against unions.
What the fuck?
He got run out.
Us that money.
Just
That's
give them the money.
He like royally screwed up. He got run out. Like, so he had no idea. This is a hilarious thing about them trying to union bust our job is that a lot of times nobody has any idea what our job actually is. And so that guy had no idea what he was talking about, and he got completely run out by everybody that worked in New Jersey. I mean, they just chewed him up and spit him out, right? And so he ended up then just being a background consultant where he would just be on meetings with people and telling them what to do, but he wasn't in front of people anymore because he just got run over.
Lost all credibility.
Lost all credibility. And to be fair, probably pushed them even further into unionizing, right? So if there was any question on the table about whether or not they were going to pass their vote, after that dickhead came in and spouted off a bunch of nonsense, I mean, they were hard. They doubled down hard and voted it in.
So does New Jersey have a contract currently?
No. No, they do not. So they're like 2 months ahead, something like that, right, of contract negotiations, and they are in the same spot, right? So they've been negotiating for 2 or 3 months longer, and they're literally in the same spot. And so, like I said, we followed in November. We had a guy come out from the corporate office that was our quote-unquote union buster, some dude that just worked in the office. I'm literally pretty sure that they just walked into the corporate office, and they were like, hey, does anybody want to go try to convince these guys not to unionize? And it was like the first person to raise their hand. And he was like, yeah,
I'll
sure.
give it a shot.
Yeah,
give it a shot. Fuck it.
because he showed up like, and listen, I'm learning all about the labor movement. I'm learning about what unions do. Like, I had to start from zero knowledge to figure all of this out, right? And then I'm now arguing with a guy that also had to start from zero knowledge and was figuring it out from the other side. So these meetings would be a lot of like us going, basically just him and I, and a few other people like that would be pretty active, arguing back and forth about like, you know, he would say something, I'd be like, that's not true. You know, I just learned about this yesterday. And then I would say something and he would be like, well, let me look into that or whatever the situation is. And I mean, that happened for months. And I'll be 100% honest, like total full transparency. They had me convinced for a while that maybe unionizing wasn't a good idea.
Yeah.
And like I had dealt with some different things where like my mom had got really sick and she had like a cancer scare and stuff for like a while, and like they had jumped on it immediately. They were like the nicest people ever to me.
Oh, wow.
Like they went hard, and I fold pretty easily into that kind of stuff because family is really important to me. So if you're expressing interest and care in my family, then I'm like, oh well, you must not be like a bad person. And it's crazy, like. The guys all kind of listen to me because I'm a little bit older, so you would think that I would have this like real world experience of like knowing and seeing the writing on the wall that this was like all a tactic, right? A move to use against like the people that were sort of like leading the movement. But I had so much stuff going on and I was just not focused. And I mean, I'll be 100% again full honest. I voted against the union. So we had you know, there's like 50 people in our bargaining unit, give or take, or something like that. And we had the election day, and I got worried, like basically day of, that we wouldn't be able to hold out in a fight with the company. That was what my primary concern was. I was like, these guys are young. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if they can do it, and I got scared. And so I was like, I'm going to vote no, and I'll just leave it up to everybody else to make the decision. And everybody made the decision. I mean, we won our vote by like 10 or 12 votes or something like that. And in a bargaining unit of 50, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, there was a substantial margin of people that were like, no, this is not okay. Like whatnot, you know? And, all the guys know what I voted for. Like, so everybody is like, this is
all
like
on the same page.
Everybody knew exactly why, and everybody knew. And I think, I'm very like guilty and like regretful of some of the decisions that I made. But I think most people know that I was trying to make the best decision for everybody at the time. And that I was changing my opinions here and there to try to make it work for everybody. I was just trying to make sure that everybody was happy.
Yeah.
And that we were going to get paid, right? Because that was another concern, was that if we didn't unionize, they were probably going to give us a raise immediately. And that is confirmed because when we unionized, when we unionized, they went to every non-union council and gave them all raises. So they gave every non-union council a raise of like 25 to like 35%. And they started our contract negotiation with, we got to negotiate our raises in December, which still haven't been negotiated. And they started them at 1%. And this is exactly what I got afraid of. Right. So this is exactly what I was afraid of. I was like, these guys, I have guys living out of their car. Like at the end of the day, maybe it's not worth the fight. Let's just get paid for now. And then we'll figure out the fight later. But everybody wanted to move forward. And so I was like, if this is the decision you guys make, let's go, you know.
Companies bank on those things though. The fear, you know, they'll try different tactics, just like, you know, everybody else, just like any other competition or, you know, they'll try different tactics. They'll try the nice guy approach. Hey, if you guys don't unionize, you know, we plan on taking care of you. This is what we're going to do. We got all these great benefits, you know, and then, you know, it comes the fear. Well, we're not going to give you guys any raises. We're going to, you know, and like you said, giving the other castles raises. Now it shows you guys, oh, okay, well, this is what happens if we desert or whatever, you know, it's like, that's tough. And, you know, when people, I think a lot of even our viewership, I'll say, may not understand that because I'll preface by saying, because most of them are already union, they may not understand the struggles of trying to go union.
To unionize.
Right? Yeah. To put their jobs on the line. There's
a real world fear there.
You know, I know with Amazon, we've been trying, you know, working on organizing Amazon and stuff, and they've fired, you know, hundreds of people. They send in, I mean, they spend millions and millions of dollars on union busters. You know, if they hear you, and they have cameras and microphones everywhere in their warehouses, and if they hear you talking about union in the break room, you're fired.
It's like China there.
Yeah, you're fired.
Yeah, I've
so
read some
just the different tactics to hear about those and what they, the lengths companies go through to stop you from unionizing is absolutely insane.
Well, and they pit you against each other too, right? Like they were, the other lead organizer in this whole thing is one of the queens, Erin, and she's fantastic, man. She's so good at what she does. Like I would not be able to do this without her. She's unbelievably good at like organizing and just being an organized person and making all the right connections and all the contacts and stuff. But we had conflict, right? Like in the whole process, because it was, I was there all the time and she wasn't there as much. And then they would be like, are you sure that what she's telling you is the right thing? And I'd be like, I don't know, yeah, I think, and then, so there was this whole back and forth. And, again, like I said, I've spoken with her about this at length, and I have a lot of guilt and a lot of regret for how I did a lot of things. But the company made a very tactical error in that after we unionized, they came down on us hard. And all that did was just bring us closer together.
Everybody.
It solidified the group, right? Now there's outliers, right? So there is an entire department that is covered under our union that does not agree with us or get along. It's only like 10 people, but that's a chunk of our bargaining unit. Yeah. And then there's a few people sort of here and there in a couple of different departments that we're never going to be on board, right? They're company through and through, or they're too scared, or whatever the situation is. But for the majority of us, the 30 people that are on strike, right? The company has done so much shit to us now that this is a very tight-knit, close group of people. And we've had conversations early on. We were very open and honest with each other. Like, everybody knows that I voted against it, and they know why, and they understand why, and they're okay with it. Aaron and I have sat down and had conversations. I've apologized for misconceptions that I had about her that the company fed into my brain and stuff. And so for us, and this is important for everybody. This is important for your viewership, and this is important for anybody that's listening to this. The best thing that we ever did was communicate with each other and be open and honest with each other about everything. And I'm talking like literally like having hard conversations to be like, you and I didn't get along, and we did not like each other. And and now that you're out here with me, you're one of my closest friends. And it's like bonds like forged through fire and different things like that. And so this is now my family, right? And we are closer than we have ever been, even working together in a locker room in a tight-knit group and whatnot, because of what we're struggling against, because of what we're fighting against. But we had to start first by being very open and honest with each other about everything. I've never lied to any of these guys about anything. I mean, I won't say never, because you never know if I exaggerate.
Like, it's like the back right now.
Now I'm like, now somebody's gonna listen to this, and they're gonna be like, you asshole lied to me last week about where you were, and I'm like, so now I don't want to back myself in that corner. But in all seriousness, for the most part, we don't lie to each other. We're very open with each other. We tell each other when we're frustrated about things. We get in fights, but we talk it out. You know what I'm saying? And we became very close, and we're like a family. And so for us now, it's almost not even about the union. It's about just taking care of each other, right? And that just happens to be through the union is the best option. And so with that, I would say that I just encourage anybody that listens to this, or anybody that's going through a struggle of their own, is that the best thing that you can do is lean on each other, and the best thing that you can do is be honest with each other. And I mean that means having hard conversations sometimes, being like, you're a dick.
Yeah.
And they're like, or I was a dick,
or
right? Or whatever the situation is, like, you need to go back and forth and be like, I messed this up. I'm very unhappy with a lot of the things that I personally did, right? But I'm going to fight to make up for that now. And I think everybody knows it, and that's the important part.
And this is kind of, I wouldn't say it's off topic, but it's a different aspect of that. Like, within the Teamsters, we have a lot of politics. Yeah. Right? A lot of elections, locals get run against, administrations, whatnot. But I've always held that position, and every time I talk to people, I'm like, at the end of the day, if we go on strike, I'm going to have to stand there right next to you, dude. Yep. Like, we need to be on the same page. That's why, we tell all of our membership, support your local union. Whoever is in power at the time, if we can have disagreements for sure. And those disagreements, we've kind of taken the stance that those disagreements really need to be done over the dinner table. It was an analogy that one of our guests, Mark Davison, said, those need to be done over the dinner table. We don't do those outside in front of the company. We don't show division. We don't, because they're going to do their best to divide us. Like you said, it's divide and conquer. Easy, you know? So, it's just something, it's a different aspect of that same thing. But at the end of the day, when the rubber meets the road, you know, we need to all stick together.
It's like your family, right? Like you're allowed to talk trash about your family, but nobody else is allowed to talk trash about your family, right?
Right, exactly.
You know, behind closed doors, we may fight and we argue and whatnot, but when it comes to the public front, we are united. And for the 30 of us that are on strike, that's the case. So, I mean, just to circle back, we went on strike on February 11th, and it was due to a variety of reasons, right? But the primary, like the straw that broke the camel's back was we were talking offline about TikTok and stuff like that, right? Yeah. And we had a pretty big like TikTok following. It was like 8,000 or 10,000 people that were following us, and we were using that to like spread our message, right? To be like, this is what's going on, this is what's happening. And so the company sued us for trademark infringement. Because we have so AGVA is our union, but because AGVA is relatively small, we don't have numbers, right? So it's not like Teamsters like 952, right? It's our local is just called Medieval Times Performers United. It's the same naming scheme that like Starbucks Workers United or Home Depot Workers United uses. Or Amazon Workers United. It's the same, right? They sued us for trademark infringement because they said that we were using Medieval Times in our naming. Wow. And that people were going to be confused and they were going to give money to us instead of the company. It's a frivolous lawsuit. It's not going to go anywhere. Yeah. But they used it to shut down all of our social media. And so they basically just ran a silencing campaign against us. And
it worked
we were
for
like,
now,
and it will for the most, at the time it was like, okay, well now we don't know what to do and we're all pissed off. And so we just walked out. Right. And so it's a unfair labor practice strike. That is one of the many ULPs that is filed against the company. You know, we've got probably 10 or 12 now that we're dealing with. Wow. It was a Saturday, February 11th. There was 3 shows that day. We did the first show. And then when we went on our lunch break, we left and never came back.
I'm sure that sent a message.
Yeah. I mean, they knew when we walked out. Right. Yeah. And so, oh my God, dude. I'm glad that this got brought up. So the company decided that instead of closing down for the day and dealing with what happened, that they still wanted to do shows. They didn't have enough people, so they pulled bartenders and servers and people that were not trained to be around live animals and put them in the sand in a performance aspect and made them do a bunch of stuff. And so if you saw a show on February 11th,
that's so dangerous.
It was ridiculous. It was the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Did anybody get hurt?
Thankfully, no. But I mean, there were people down there in like tennis shoes, right? Like I wear like full riding gear and all this kind of stuff and armor and all that stuff, and they're down there. People are down there in like tennis shoes.
Guys down there in his Converse, and like I didn't realize they had that.
Exactly, and the company's like, oh, don't worry, we'll replace your tennis shoes for you, you know, since you helped us out or whatnot. And so if you paid $70 a ticket to go to that second show on February 11th, you saw half of a show. Like they literally cut half of it out because they didn't have enough people, and everybody was just like, cool, this is how it is. And then literally by that Saturday, so the next day, overnight, they'd flown in like 30 people.
So they've flown in 30 other people from
around the country?
Yeah, so there's 10 locations, 1 in Canada, 9 in the United States, and 2 are unionized, right? So New Jersey and California. Yeah. And we both unionized last year, so this is obviously a slow process, right? And so they just pull from non-union castles. They have a revolving door of temporary nights and scab workers that are coming in every week.
And I don't know that you would know, but what has AGVA done to kind of get to those other barns and, you know, at least start the process of organizing those people so that you don't have people willing to fly across the country to basically be a scab?
Well,
flying scabs.
They were having conversations. Dude, seriously, they were having conversations with multiple people at different locations. But when we unionize, and especially when we went on strike, the company clamped down hard and started firing people in different locations and cleaning house in a lot of places. And so now we're dealing with like who's still left and who's not left. And keep in mind, AGVA doesn't have like an organizer. You know what I'm saying? So this is done through email and phone calls to like our secretary treasurer, right? Who is a wonderful, wonderful woman who's been working for AGVA for a very long time, and is one of the greatest people that I've ever met. She's amazing, but she is overworked. To say the least, you know what I'm saying? And she does so much for us. And I think right now the fight is here, right? And so it's like, we got to win this fight before we can even think about talking to another castle. And to be fair, I don't think anybody will talk to you until we win. The company has basically said, oh, we're not going to let them win. We're going to win. And so everybody should be afraid because this is what's going to happen if you do this, right? And so now it's on us. It's on us to win the fight. And when we win the fight, then we can go around and be like, look, it was tough, but we won. And this is exactly how we did it. And this is exactly the benefits that we're getting, right? Yeah. And I can then go to people, and I'll do it on my free time. I'll fly out to every single castle, like on my free time, on my own dime, and I'll literally show them. I'll be like, this is our contract. This is how much more we're getting paid. These are all our amazing benefits. These are our health benefits, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So why are you not on board? You know? And I'll start talking to them and having those conversations. If I need to do that, I will. But for the meantime, you know, the focus is here. And this is, I mean, even New Jersey's focus is here, right? They're not on strike. We're the only ones that are on strike.
Really?
So, yeah.
So New Jersey voted. They already are a union, but they're not on strike?
Correct. And keep in mind, their contracts are slightly different, right? So every contract with the Medieval Times is going to be slightly different because the location changes, you know, has like some variability to it just depending on where you're at. And so New Jersey is not on strike. We've tried to convince them to go on strike, you know, with us and to fight, but they are worried. Rightfully so. They're worried about a lot of things. And I just think that we're fortunate. I mean, like I said, we've been sort of forged in fire with this like group of people that we have where we're very close. And so we're doing everything that it takes to protect each other and to be out together. And not everybody has that, right? Even within our own company, even in New Jersey, they all agreed to vote for the union, but they're still not like as like cohesive, I don't think, as we are, as like together as we are. And so I think that's just a benefit that we have right now. And that's why the fight, that's why we're able to keep up the fight like on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, you would think that they would honor at the very least.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
It's a new thing, right? Like you're thinking of it from a perspective of like the Teamsters, right? And I mean, you guys, like you said before, the Teamsters have been around for a long time, and you guys have had contracts before, and you understand that like, oh, if this local goes on strike, like we can honor that, all that kind of stuff. Dude, none of us even understood how unions work 2 months ago, right? 3 months ago, or a year ago, really. And so I think it's another one of those things where it's like an education thing where the guys in New Jersey are still a little unsure about what they can and can't do. They're still a little unsure about what their rights are. They're unsure about what their protections are, like all this kind of stuff. And that sort of just creates this like fear bubble that's like kind of hard to get past. And I mean, I think it might just be a California thing, to be fair. Like we're sort of like laissez-faire about things. Like they had thought about going on strike before, and then they found out that the company had shipped in like a lot of nights and all that kind of stuff. And they were like, well, it's not going to be effective. Let's not worry about it right now, blah, 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 blah. And we were like, I mean, the day before we went out, I was like, listen, if a bunch of people show up to take our jobs tomorrow, I don't care. I'm still walking out. And everybody was like, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, we like straight up walked out. Like it might just be a California thing. Like everybody was like, we'll figure it out when we get out there. Yeah. And we had no plans. AGVA doesn't have a strike fund. Right. Yeah, and so we've been we get donations through GoFundMe. We're asking the public to support us, which is hard. It's extremely difficult to do. You have to swallow your pride and be like, please help me. Yeah. Because I'm not getting paid right now. And we had no idea that was going to work at all. And we've just gotten very fortunate so far that we've been able to stay out as long as we have. And I mean, we're on what I said earlier was like
February 11th. So you guys are you guys have been out for like 2.5 months now.
Yeah, it's like 70-something days, so 75, something like that, 76.
It's crazy. I think I went to see a show like 4 months ago or 5 months ago.
I was probably in it.
Took my kids. Yeah. I think you were, believe it or not. When I saw you, I was like, I think he was the Green Knight.
Yeah, probably. Hopefully it was one of the good ones. Because there are bad shows. I watch it back every now and then, and I'm like, man, that was not good. That was not good. So,
yeah, I mean, so what are the plans going forward? I mean, were we just sticking it out? I know you said off camera, you said you didn't want to get to the end of the year because the company is going to probably try to desert you guys.
They're going to try to desert, yeah. I mean, they're everything that they're doing is a tactical move to drag this whole process out, right? And so what we have to do is find ways to be more disruptive. Obviously, we weren't even disruptive when we walked out, right? They still managed to throw together a show. So it's almost like I have to have like some small amount of respect for just the tenacity of this company to continue to remain open despite all the issues that they've been facing. Because I know that they're spending a lot of money. I mean, they're paying these flying scabs, right, are getting like $70 a day per diems. They're getting or $70 a day bonuses. They're getting $400 per week per diems. They're getting like unlimited room service at their hotels and stuff. I mean, they're paying thousands of dollars a week for one guy.
Like, come work over here.
Yeah.
Damn.
So, wow.
It's almost hard to be mad at them, right? It's like, dude, how? Like I
mean, they're losing so much money.
Yeah, I mean, they're bleeding money, but they don't care. They do not care at all. And this is a pride fight through and through 100%. It's not like.
But I mean, where's the pride? You're not taking care of your workers.
It's a I'm right, you're wrong thing. Like, I mean, we know the CEO personally. The CEO, the owner of the company, has talked to me personally. He knows who I am. Like, we have had conversations before, and he probably at this point in time hates me. And it is now down to, you know, I hate that dude and I'm not going to give in, right? Or I hate that group of people and I'm not going to give in. How dare you? How dare you come and challenge me, right? How dare you say that I mess up? Like, you don't understand what I go through. You don't understand the life that I had, blah, 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 blah. It's like you're not thinking logically. You're thinking emotionally. And it's a pride thing. And so, you know, to circle back and answer your question, I would say that we are just going to have to experiment and find ways to be more effective on the strike line, because there is no world in which it would be okay or acceptable in any form or fashion for us to lose this fight. And if that means that it's going to take another year, if we can get through to decert and all that kind of stuff, it may take another year, and that's going to suck because I don't know what to do at that point. We're going to have to figure it out on the run, right? We're figuring everything out as we go, right? And I mean, a lot of our information is coming from you guys, right? It's every single time you're out on the line talking to me and I'm asking questions and you guys are answering them, and then I'm trying to figure out what to do, and then we're making adjustments. I mean, we did 50 something days of like a very passive strike. We were out there, we were hand billing, we were trying to talk to people directly, we were trying to appeal to their better nature, and it wasn't working, right? It was getting us donations in the GoFundMe, but all that's doing is putting a Band-Aid on the problem, right? It's just prolonging the situation, but it wasn't working. People were still going to the show. So then we ramped up our efforts and we were like, we got to be more disruptive. We got to figure out what to do. And then we started getting run over by cars, right? And then we started getting assaulted. And it was like, that happened like 2 weeks ago or a week before last.
Somebody was run over with a car?
Yeah, so we moved our picket line to be more active, to create a actual picket line instead of just like this, because people thought we were protesting, not picketing. And again, this is like a knowledge and education thing. We're learning as we're doing this. And we've made a lot of mistakes, but we're getting better. And so then we created an actual picket line, right? And we were walking back and forth on these like crosswalks and trying to create like a visual like picket line, right?
People late to the show.
You know, and it was causing a slight delay in traffic. Like you would end up sitting in the entryway for like a few minutes, like nothing major. And we were adjusting these things on the fly. Like I was working with the police department and all this kind of stuff to make sure that everything was good and traffic was moving smoothly, but we were still picketing and being visible and being seen. And dude, people were pissed if they had to sit at all, if they had any sort of weight at all, because we were picketing back and forth and they had to sort of get around us or whatnot. I mean, they tried to run us over. A week ago, somebody got out of their car and assaulted like 4 or 5 of us, threw us into bushes, and like one dude ended up breaking his tailbone because he got thrown to the ground so bad. And thankfully that guy got arrested, but it was, I mean, we had a day of like a bunch of violence. And then since then, and thankfully, I mean, the Buena Park PD has been actually pretty nice and very respectful. And they've been pretty helpful. And since then,
They're union.
Yeah. I mean, you would think, but I think it's an individual thing. I don't necessarily know
I agree.
I don't necessarily know that all of them agree with us, but for the most part, they've been very nice. And they've been good on educating us, right? They educate us on our rights and what we can and can't do. And I've been talking to them and learning, and they've been like, you can't do this, please stop this. And then we pull it back or whatever we need to do to be like, to build a good relationship with them.
That's good.
And because it's important, because now we have sort of a decent relationship with them. And then since that incident, they've been out a lot more, and they've been very careful to like watch what's going on. And they've been, they've been very good about like stepping in if there's any sort of like aggression sort of building, you know, but then we were, we can't picket on the street anymore, right? There was like some legal issues and stuff that we needed to deal with, and so we've had to change tactics and we've had to try something else, and we're trying something else this week. And then if that doesn't work, we'll try something else, and we're just gonna keep adjusting and trying to be disruptive and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I don't understand, and I will never understand why you think that your 2 hours of entertainment is more important than my life. And I mean, to the point where you're willing to run me over to get to your show.
I've said it before on the show, But we need to bring back the days of blowing up cars for, just to blow up cars.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Dude, you guys come out and have the best stories about stuff. You're like, oh yeah, have you guys made a ball of nails to like puncture people's tires yet? And I'm like, no, we have not done that, and we're probably not going to. But that sounds awesome.
To go to the parking lot and have negotiations.
It's honestly, it comes down to what you just said. Is that 2 hours of entertainment, or the company, is that extra $1 million of profit on top of your, $30 million that you're making? Is it worth somebody's life? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they're fighting for, their entertainment, the customers, or the company, their profits. And you got members that are living in their car, working full time for you, living in their car, getting hurt on the job, all these things that you guys are fighting for. And it just blows my mind sometimes how callous and just uncaring people can be.
Oh, and they do not care.
Especially,
dude, they don't care about anything.
They get a little bit of money and they're like, man, this is nice.
It's not even them. It's like guests are almost just as bad. I mean, they don't care at all. We since I've been at this location in Buena Park, I've been, and internally, we've all been fighting and documenting a case against our head horse trainer and our assistant horse trainer. They both abuse the animals. They beat the ever-living shit out of our horses. And for a long time, it was like we were speaking up saying this makes us uncomfortable, but it was a lack of education thing, because it was like they would just be like, oh, well, this is the way it's done. And you're like, okay, this doesn't feel right, but like I don't know how to argue against it, right?
Yeah, I'm not a horse trainer.
And then exactly, and so then you start to educate yourself a little bit more, and then you're like, no, this is not okay. And you're talking to them, and you're trying to like tell them like this is not okay. And one of our major fights is that our management does not listen to anything. It dies on our manager's desk, right? Whatever our complaint is. So it's like they won't pay attention to anything. They won't document anything. There's nothing. And so finally, like about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago or something, I got video evidence. Finally, I got video evidence of it happening, right? Wow. Pictures and like videos and stuff. And we went to the company. We were like, we have evidence of you doing this. Like, you need to stop it. And they were like, no, you're wrong. And then we sent them like a letter, and we were like, no, seriously, you need to like deal with this. And their lawyer was like, these allegations are false. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. So then I just released the videos. I released them publicly.
Wow.
And I was like, now tell me I'm wrong. And they did. They came back and told me I edited the videos. They came back and told me I edited the videos and that I had no idea what I was talking about. See? We proposed across the table in one of our bargaining sessions a 2-page like horse health and safety, like a addendum kind of thing. And it's very basic. It was pulled from like the National Equestrian Federation of the United States like website, or some of it was. And it's like, don't abuse the animals. Yeah. Don't overuse a whip. Don't beat them. All this kind of stuff. They rejected all of it.
So what help have you got? Jesus. I know that's honorable. You guys are actually fighting and care about the horses and trying to add that to your contract. But what help have you got from PETA or any,
Dude, PETA didn't think our fight was big enough.
Really?
That's basically what they told me. And so, they might now that we got hit by cars. This was a few weeks ago, but I've gotten some feedback from like the Humane Society and different things like that. And there's some different groups that are looking into helping us. But it's a small scale fight right now. And so some of these major organizations are dealing with like much bigger fights. Yeah. And I think I'm trying to convince them to take some time out of their day to help us out a little bit. And so it's been a little bit back and forth. We've got some things in the works. And then we've hit some dead ends elsewhere. But the biggest thing that I thought was that I thought once I showed people and proved to them that this was happening, that guests would stop coming. And they don't care. And I showed them pictures as they're walking in. And I'm like, this is happening here. The animals that you're going to see are abused. Yeah. If you cross this picket line and you go inside, you are actively supporting animal abuse. And you're telling me that your hour of 45 minutes of entertainment is more important than our lives. And they will just walk right past you.
And your shitty chicken.
And your shitty chicken. And I told, like, so, like, literally, like, 2 doors down on the other side of the street is a Pirates Dinner Theater. Yeah, and, like, I'm sure they have their own issues, too, but they're not on strike right now. And we've been over there. It's a great show, and their chicken is better. And so, I'm serious, we send people over there all the time. We're like, dude, just go see Pirates.
Just go see Pirates.
Just go see Pirates.
The food
right
is
now.
better.
They're not on strike.
Yeah, right.
Their
they have
food's
saucy
better.
wenches.
Like, yeah, they, you know, like, they've got a mermaid.
You should see
it's
their
awesome.
wenches.
I keep yelling at people. They serve chocolate cake, and everybody likes chocolate cake. You know what I'm saying?
Like, go right there.
And a couple of people actually went. There was a couple of people that actually like went to Pirates instead.
That's cool.
Oh, that's
right?
cool.
And so
you are helping a little bit. I mean,
yeah, I'm helping
odds
Pirates.
are you're not going to get how many people go see a show on a daily basis or each one show.
So our capacity is 1,200 people. We cap at 800 right now, and almost every show is close to being sold out. So, I mean, not every show, but like most of them. So, I mean, for example, like we did, you know, last night was 2 shows, right? And the first show probably had 600 something people, and the second show probably had 700 something. A lot of them are schools. Schools will do their senior trips and their spring break trips and stuff like that.
Now,
those are kind of hard to sway.
I'm kind of curious. So, do you get to address the teachers as they come in? I mean, if they're bringing schools or chaperones. I mean, I'm sure the teachers there, I'm sure some of them are parents or whatever, chaperones, right? But, I mean, most teachers are union.
Yep.
You know, you would think that, hey, if the school found out, we probably shouldn't book our senior trip here. You know what I mean? Or
it's a mix. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're talking to teachers associations and things like that. We're letting them know what's going on. But a lot of these school trips are booked like a year in advance.
Yeah,
right?
so they're like, we already paid for this.
Exactly, and it's not something where it's like
go to Pirates.
You got a right? You got a bus full of kids, and I mean, sometimes there'll be like hundreds of kids, and you're not going to turn around and just like cancel a school trip, right? And then you got a mixture of like very sympathetic teachers, and you got a mixture of teachers that do not give a shit, and they're the most surprising, right?
Yeah, everywhere.
Dude, I had I mean, literally straight up last night, this woman walked past me, and she's like, "Oh, this is unfortunate. Like, I get your fight. I'm union," and I went, "Why are you crossing a picket line then?" And she just smiled and walked in, and I was like, I can't with some of these people. Like it's like difficult. It's like very difficult. Like I have to like, you guys understand probably even better than I do because you've been doing it a lot longer. But we are so restricted by what we can and can't do, right? And if we step out of line at all, it's like all of a sudden all this like legal stuff comes down on us because the company has unlimited money. Well, not unlimited, but you know they have
that way
unlimited money, right? And they can do whatever they want to. They can break any law they want to. The fines are like nominal.
Oh, definitely.
Like,
the scales are not in your favor.
It's not. It's all. It's like they get a slap on the wrist and pay $5,000 or whatever, and it's totally worth it because they screwed us over in the end. And so we have to operate in this like very strict set of limits, right? And the company doesn't have to do anything. And the reason I bring that up is because, man, what you want to do is grab people and shake them to be like, wake up, right? Pay attention to what the fuck is going on. Like, wake up. And it's like, but you can't, man. Like we can get hit by cars and it's, you know, not a big deal. But like the moment we accidentally bump into a car and then all of a sudden like people are trying to sue us for vandalism or some shit.
We had somebody get hit by a car on one of the picket lines that we were on. They get a little crazy. I mean, but you like I said, you are dealing with people that are fighting for their livelihood that are, you know, sooner or later, you know, you brought up the France thing. Sooner or later, when you've taken everything from somebody, they have nothing left to lose. Yeah. You know? And when you do that to enough people, I mean, I think companies are going to start to take notice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's where we're at right now. I mean, look, our asks are not that big. Like our top 3 asks are, you know, get rid of the horse abusers and stop abusing our animals. Pay us better, right? And then take better care of us. Like we get hurt all the time. I broke my back, right? Like we get hurt all the time. There's chronic back injuries. There's torn ACLs and MCLs. There's shoulder injuries. We're very, very, very similar to professional wrestling. And so
I see that fall off the horses.
Yeah, it's
and all
very
that.
similar. Like they do stunts and stuff in their shows and all that time and stuff too. And the injuries are similar. Like it's like a lot of impact on your joints, especially if you do it for a long time. We got a guy that's out with us right now that's been there for 12 or 13 years. And he's got chronic back pain, right? Chronic back pain and joint issues and stuff. And he's concussions, broken feet, like broken, you know, infected, like busted elbows, like there's a lot of injuries, right? And this company just chews you up and spits you out and you have nothing. You have nothing to show for it. And our job doesn't translate into like the real working environment, right? You can't be like, hey man, like I jump off horses and I fight with swords.
Yeah, what have you been doing the past 10 years?
Yeah.
Sitting in his cubicle now, just like
Exactly. You know, and we're not built for that either. We're not built for that either. I mean, there's a reason that I left my like relatively cushy tech job to come back, even though it was a giant pay cut, right? Is that it's just at some point you're an entertainer, you're a performer, you're an adrenaline junkie, whatever the outlet is. It's not sitting behind a desk or working 9 to 5 is not your thing. Yeah. And that's not what we're built for. That's why we love what we do, and that's why we love the job. And the job itself is amazing. It is very fun. It is very fun, and the people that I work with are incredible for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always a few assholes.
But the company is just they just suck, man. They're antiquated, they're dated. They've been around for 40 years and they haven't updated for 40 years. You know, and it's trying to drag them kicking and screaming into the modern day, right? And we're not asking for a lot. I make $18.50 an hour. You know, and I jump off horses and I get hurt and all this kind of stuff. I can't afford to live, right? And all we're at, like, their most recent bargaining, what I proposed was that starting nights made $25 an hour, you know? And like, there's so many people that are like, that'll see our show. They're like, you guys are amazing. You guys should be making $40 an hour. And you're like, you're right. We should be making $40 an hour. I'm not even asking for that.
Yeah.
Right. All I'm asking is that if you Google the cost of living in California and it pops up and says like, you need to make $25 an hour to survive. All I'm asking is to survive, right? Yeah. Like, let me survive and work at the job that I enjoy, and stop fighting me so much about it. But
that's the crazy part is how much you enjoy the job, and they're like, yeah, we still don't want to pay you that much.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
We're getting a little long on runtime.
Okay,
look,
fair.
we can talk for days. That's kind of how we are. But I just want you, this last segment, just to kind of go over what exactly you need from us as far as what support do you need, where do you need support. I know a lot of Teamsters have been out there with you on the picket line. When do those take place? All that kind of stuff.
So I have 3 asks, and these are big asks, and I hate to ask, but I have to. The first one is that more recently what I need is bodies. I need people on the picket line. We don't have a lot of people. Some of our guys are having to get second jobs. Like, I just need people to help me be effective. And we picket generally 5 to 6 days a week. Okay. You can follow us on our Instagram. It's like I think it's like Medieval Times Reformers United California, or like MTP.
So why don't you give us times and the address? That would be super helpful.
So Medieval Times is in Buena Park. It's off like 7,000. It's a 7,000 Beach Boulevard.
I'll put the address right
here.
Yeah,
it's. I don't know the exact address, but we'll have it linked. And then generally speaking, we're out on the weekends from like 12:30 to 8. You know, we're out during the week on like Fridays. We'll be there from like 3:30 to 8. And then the single show days, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're out from like maybe 5 to 7 or 7:30 or something like that.
Okay.
And then there's like slight variability, right? So it's like I'll see if I can give you our socials and maybe you can like put them up or something like that, because we post a strike schedule, and it's like just pay attention to it, follow the strike schedule. Anytime you're able to come out, please come out. I just need bodies, right? Okay. The second thing would be, please tell everybody. Right? You know, we have to get the word out. Like, tell every single person that you meet that this is going on.
You better share the show.
Yes, share it.
Fucking
share the show, share everything. Please, like, get the word out. And then the third thing is that if you can do all that, or if you still want to help or whatever the situation is, we have a GoFundMe. And I'll give you guys the links and whatnot. And if you want to donate directly to us, that is what is keeping people on strike right now. I'm paying the guys, not even every one of them, right? I'm paying like, the guys are taking as little as possible as they can get to survive right now. Yeah. And that is how we're able to keep 30 people out. Thank God some of us have jobs or other sources of income, or else we'd be screwed. But that's one of those are our top 3, right? So either your time or your social media presence, or, you know, some money. And we can, with those 3 things, we can probably keep this fight up for a while.
Well, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
I mean, like I said, we could probably talk for days and days. The job is super interesting, and I've actually been to plenty of shows. I mean, I went as a kid, and then, you know, I have kids now, so I've taken them a couple times. Obviously, I'm not going right now.
Right. Yeah.
But, you know, we just appreciate you coming on. We hope that you guys out there are getting that message, the union message out there. We really need to. There's strength in numbers. Let's just say that, you know, and they're in a fight, but they're not alone. And we need to show our presence as Teamsters, as fellow unionists. Get out there, support, share this, send some money if you can. And, got anything for me, George?
You can email us at ocst.000@gmail. You can hit us up on Instagram. Check out our social. It's ocst.952. Just like, share, subscribe, all that same old jazz.
Thank you guys for tuning in every week. We'll see you next time.